Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton, and it's Super Bowl week. We have the Philadelphia Eagles on one side representing the NFC, and we have the Kansas City Chiefs representing the AFC. And we have the unique and great thing happening during Black History Month of two black quarterbacks in the Super Bowl facing each other for the first time. And I thought, who better to have on than one of the best quarterbacks of all time, in my opinion, Mr. Warren Moon. How you doing, man?
I always thought you were a smart man, Mike, and you just verified it right there. You're doing great.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, of course, like I mentioned, two black quarterbacks facing each other for the first time in the Super Bowl. Now, I know your journey. Your journey went from not being drafted to going to Canada to having to show you were good enough to play quarterback. So, what does this moment mean for you?
It's a moment of pride. It's a moment of joy. It's a moment of progress. It shows that everything that I went through didn't go in vain. Um, because I knew when I played the game and when I came into the league in 1984, I was the only starting African American quarterback in the league, and there was only one other one in the league, a guy by the name of Brian Ransom, who's from right down in your neck of the woods at Tennessee State. He was our third quarterback, so me and him were the only two in the league at that time. So there was a lot of eyes put on me. There was a lot of analyzation put on me. There was a lot of criticism put on me, a lot of expectations put on me, not only from fans and people who knew how much money I was making, but also just from my people because they wanted me to succeed. I mean, everywhere I went, African American people told me, Warren, you have to represent us well, and you felt that. So it means a lot that we're at this stage now. It took a little bit longer to get here than I thought, but we've had what I think about eight different African American quarterbacks now have played in the Super Bowl, and this is the first time we've ever had two, and this is historic because it's never happened before. And given the plight of everything we've been told we couldn't do and what we weren't capable of doing, it just shows that there was a lot of wrong people out there, and that there's more and more guys getting the opportunities to play the position as African Americans than ever.
Yeah, it definitely is a moment of pride for sure. And, you couldn't have two more talented quarterbacks than Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. But we're going to talk about Mr. Patrick Mahomes first, though. And just how special do you think he is just over the time you've seen him play?
Well, I mean, he's had the I guess the most successful start of any quarterback for his first 5 or 6 years. So that tells you something about him right there. That he's been to three. This will be his third Super Bowl. He's already been an MVP in the league. He's been a Super Bowl MVP. He's been to five straight AFC Championship games, and I tell you what, he's he's backing up everything that everybody's saying about him. He's just a very special player, and everybody knows about his physical gifts and being able to move around and buy time and create and do all these things. But I think what's more impressive is his competitiveness and his toughness, especially what he showed last week playing on that gimpy ankle. And I've had a high ankle sprain before. They are no fun to try and play with, and it kind of limited his game. But it just showed you that he's got more than just move around, get outside the pocket game. He stayed in the pocket, threw the football as well as he's thrown it all year, and led his team to a Super Bowl. So I love everything about him.
Now, I will say this, some people had some down expectations for him going into this season because, the loss of Tyreek Hill. He only went out and threw 41 touchdowns, had 12 interceptions only. Had a career high 67% completion percentage and threw for 5,250 yards. I mean, did you expect that type of production from him without Tyreek Hill?
I really did, to tell you the truth. I thought not having Tyreek Hill was going to make him a better quarterback. It was going to make him a more patient quarterback. He was going to spread the ball around a little bit more and not look at one or two guys as much like Kelsey and also Hill. And that's what he did. He spread the ball around. At one point early in the season, I think he had 15 or 16 touchdown passes to 10 different receivers. So all it really did was make him better. And you look at his numbers were as good as they've been, except for I think that first year that he came into the league. I mean, first year started when I think he had 50 touchdown passes. But, like you said, his percentage was higher this year. And then he threw for over 5,000 yards again. So he did about what I thought he was going to be able to do, which was spread the ball around a little bit more, and that just makes them a more dangerous team offensively because nobody knows who to key on.
All right, we do have some comments in the toward the AFC South inbox, and of course we have Mr. Chris Pomey saying the 5-time Grey Cup champion with the CFL's Edmonton Eskimos. He's from Canada, so.
Oh, okay, cool. It's always nice to hear from people above the border.
And we have one from Matthew Sandy. He said, back in 2019, when I was a junior in high school, I actually did a Black History report on Warren Moon and the entrepreneur program I was in.
Sweet. That's very flattering to me.
Definitely. Now we definitely have to talk about Mr. Jalen Hurts. And I mean, the leadership and the calm of Jalen Hurts. I mean, the cool he possesses every time he steps on the field in any type of competition. Was that the thing that most impressed you about him, or was there some other things that impressed you about him as well?
Well, yeah, that no question about it, and his leadership abilities, and also his work ethic. This is a kid that's worked to become what he is right now, and he wasn't a polished pocket passer when he came into the league, and that was the knock on him, and that's probably why he went in the second round. But he's worked his tail off over the last couple of years, especially last offseason, to really become a much better pocket passer. And I think he was the leader of all quarterbacks this year in throws of over 20 yards down the field. So he's become a very good deep ball thrower. He's starting to be much more patient in the pocket, which is something he's going to have to do. He can't always run and move around when that first receiver isn't there. So I like that he's evolving, and I think if he continues to keep that same work ethic, he's only going to get better as a quarterback. What is he, 23 years old, something like that? So he's got a long time left to play this game, and a lot of good years left, and he's got some really good wideouts who are both very young on the outside, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
Definitely. Now, before the season, of course, many were kind of shaky on Jalen Hurts, and people were thinking that, okay, they got 3 draft picks next year. They're going to trade all these for another quarterback, a veteran quarterback, and they kind of just let Jalen go to the side or do whatever. But they stuck with him, and of course, Jalen this season, 66.5% completion percentage, which is his highest as a Eagles starting quarterback. It's only been 2 years, of course, but 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and 13 rushing touchdowns. I mean, no one is doubting him at this point, I would say. Did you think it was fair to him that people were doubting him so much going into this season?
I didn't think it was fair because I know how much development it takes for some young quarterbacks. Some guys come in and get it right away. Some guys, it takes a little while. But you got to remember, this guy in his first year as a starter took them to the playoffs. They didn't win, but they went to the playoffs. And then his next year, they're in the Super Bowl. So why would people doubt him if he took their team to the playoffs in his first year as a starter, and knowing he's a very young guy and can only get better? I don't know why people would, but that's just kind of the way it's always been for African Americans. We have to deliver right away, or all of a sudden they're talking about getting rid of us. So he proved everybody wrong this year, and if he doesn't miss those last 2 ball games, maybe he's the MVP of this league, or maybe there's co-MVPs with him and Patrick Mahomes. Who knows? But that's the type of year that he had. So I would hope everybody would just shut up and let this kid continue to keep developing and keep getting better.
That's right. I would say this. The thing about Jalen Hurts that I would say the biggest word that I have that represents him to me is class personified, because he's gotten questions that any other person would get riled up or probably be irritated by, but he's handled them calm, he's handled them with a smile, and he's kept it moving, which I can greatly appreciate his demeanor. especially in the press conferences. I mean, I know you've heard some of those questions, right?
Oh yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with his upbringing and with his mom and dad. His dad being a coach, they coached him all his young life, and I think he understands this game. He understands everything that's expected of him, and I think having a dad in his life has been a big influence for him, and it contributes to part of the calm that you see in his personality.
Correct, correct. Now we do have to get on to the matchup. Well, it isn't just Hurts versus Mahomes. It is the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Kansas City Chiefs. And of course, Mahomes is going to be facing a Philadelphia defense with four guys with 10 plus sacks up front and probably the best defensive back pairing in all of the NFL as well. So going into this game, I mean, what do you expect them to or do you expect Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy to kind of cook up to kind of offset the few different things that the Eagles have advantages on?
Well, I think they're going to have to try and continue to run the ball effectively. You don't have to run it for 150 yards, but you do need to run it effectively when you do run it to keep them off balance, because if it becomes an all-out passing game, that's when your offensive line can get overwhelmed by not only the four guys that they have with over 11 sacks, but they have, just a lot of depth on their defensive line. They have, Dominican Sue they can bring in. They have all these different guys that they can bring in and they don't lose very much. So that's something that you don't want to let those guys let the game play into their hands. I think a lot of quick throws are going to be something they're going to have to do, because you don't want to be holding the ball that long against this pass rush. So trying to get the ball out of there quickly, whether it's bubble screens or quick screens or slants or different things to little option routes to Kelsey. And then when you want to take your shot, you take your shot. But I think holding the ball is not going to be something that's good against this defensive front, especially if you're on a gimpy ankle. We don't know how bad that ankle is still, and you want to make sure he's getting the ball out of his hands, kind of like what he was doing against Cincinnati in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And, of course, another thing to look at, too, is just the ability of, I think when you said the short passes, I think a guy that will definitely come into play there would be Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, he left out of the game early in the AFC Championship game, but he's had a couple weeks to rest. So, with him versus, I think he'll more than likely draw Slay. So if him versus Slay will probably be a very telling matchup in this game, would you think?
I think so. But, when you play a lot of man, it only takes one guy to get beat. And what you want to try and do as a quarterback is try and find the best matchup against the man for man, because you can't cover everybody with great cover guys. So you have to find hopefully your best receiver or one of your good receivers that has the weaker matchup, and that's what you keep exploiting. And you try and chase them out of that man coverage, especially with whoever is guarding Jason Kelsey, because he's a hard matchup for a defensive back. He's a hard matchup for a linebacker. So that's going to be one to watch too. Who they have assigned to him and how they're going to try and cover him.
Now, we did have another question from the Touring the AFC South inbox. We did have someone ask, as a QB, with an ankle injury, as you playing quarterback, what is the normal time of healing for that? That you would say, to be totally, dependent on that ankle again.
There's different degrees of high ankle sprains, and I wasn't exactly sure what degree his was, but it looked pretty bad when it first happened. I would have thought he would have been out a month with the way it looked when it first happened. But he must have had a lot of elasticity in those ankle ligaments, because basically that's what you're spraining is the ligaments on the side of the bottom of your ankle, on the top of your ankle, but on the bottom of your leg. But their trainers did an amazing job of getting him ready to play the next week, and he's had 2 weeks now to get ready for this one. It usually takes about 3 weeks, maybe a month sometimes, to get that thing back to normal again. But he's gutting it out. Like I said, they have a special tape job on it where he has like 2 splints on the side of it. So he doesn't have a lot of movement in that ankle, but he is able to move straight ahead and make things happen. You're not going to see him probably making a lot of moves on people, but being able to run straight ahead or move straight ahead, I think he's going to be able to do that.
All right, thank you. And let's see. For Hurts, of course, and the Eagles, of course, they do have one of the best offensive line in the NFL. They are, Lane Johnson is dealing with an abdominal tear, which is huge to think about. But they have to deal with a particular gentleman that's one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. And that would be Mr. Chris Jones.
Right.
So if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, are you moving him around a little bit in there, or are you just particularly putting him right in the middle of the Rick Avenue?
I think you move him around, and you saw him move over to left defensive end last week, and he got a sack over Cincinnati's right tackle. So you can't underestimate him just being a big guy. He's got a lot of quickness for it. He's a 295, almost 300-pound guy, but he really has good feet. So I think they're going to move him around and try and get different matchups that they feel like they can exploit with him, along with Frank Clark, who has had a really good a really good postseason so far. I think he has 2.5 sacks in his 2 playoff games. So both of those guys know how to take their game to another level in the playoffs. They've played in a lot of playoff games together, and they're going to need that against Jalen Hurts. The big thing for the Chiefs, though, they're going to have to stop the run. That's something they haven't been as good at this year against most teams, is stopping the run, especially when the quarterback runs. They're one of the worst in the league, trying to stop quarterbacks from either scrambling or running the football and design plays. So that's something hopefully they're putting a lot of time into as far as practicing for these next couple of weeks, and they'll come up with some type of strategy to try and shut down that running game. Because if you don't do that, that's when Jalen Hurts really kills you with play action.
Now, speaking of the running game, I mean, you have 2 linebackers with the Kansas City Chiefs. You have Nick Bolton and Willie Gay. To me, both of them are young guys that can, take it to the next level, especially Bolton, which I think he's going to end up being a star of that defense if he isn't already for some. But do you think those 2 guys, in my opinion, will be 2 of the key players in this game in terms of keeping up with Jalen Hurts? Would you agree, or is there someone else that I may be missing?
No, I agree with you. And what that offense does is it really kind of slows you down a little bit, because you're always looking to see where the ball is, because they're sticking it inside that running back and they're riding it, and all of a sudden he's pulling it out, and you're thinking the running back has the ball, all of a sudden the quarterback has it. So it really slows you down as a defensive player, and they're very good at the way they run that read option, and they also pull it out and throw the football from that as well. So it's going to be important for those big guys up front to keep those linemen off those linebackers, so they can make the plays on those running backs when they do get the football. Or if Jalen Hurts pulls it out, whoever has the assignment of him on the outside, they want to make sure that he doesn't get any of those big runs that he's capable of doing.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Who is the X factor in your opinion for Kansas City and for Philadelphia?
The X factor is for Kansas City, I think, will be what's the little running back, number 10's name?
Pacheco.
I think he's not only running the football, he's got to be effective that way, but they'll try and get it to him on screens, because whenever you're playing against a very good pass rush, you want to try and slow them down by running screens and draws. But Chiefs are a really good screen team anyway, and Pacheco can be very effective that way once he gets the ball out in space, but he's also been a very effective runner. So I think he's going to be one of the unsung heroes for the Chiefs. And then for Philadelphia, I think their tight end.
Yeah, Goddard.
Their tight end Goddard is going to be the X factor for them, because I think Jalen feels very comfortable throwing him the football, because he doesn't have to throw it downfield a long way. And I still don't think his shoulder is as healthy as people think it is. If you look over the last couple of ball games that he's played, he's only thrown for 270 yards in the last 2 games total. So I don't know how good that arm is and how good it feels right now. Hopefully with 2 weeks off, it feels a little bit better. But not having to throw the football down the field very far to your tight end is a great security blanket for any quarterback.
All right, and last question. Putting you on the spot. The Super Bowl, at the end of the game, the clock's going on doubles to triple zeros, the confetti's falling. Who do you have winning this game?
If it goes down to a field goal, or if it goes down, if it's that close a ball game at the end, I think the Chiefs will win it. But I think that Philadelphia has the better team from as far as the roster. That I think on both sides of the ball in the line of scrimmage, I think they're better on both sides of the ball, and that's where a lot of these big games are won. But if the game stays that close, I think the Chiefs can win it at the end with a Buckner field goal. Otherwise, it's going to be Philadelphia.
All right. Well, I thank you again for your time, Mr. Warren Moon, NFL Hall of Fame quarterback, Mr. Warren Moon. Let me get it correct. Now, can you tell everyone where they can find you on social media or anything you have going on in terms of the Super Bowl or social media or anything like that?
Well, on Twitter, I'm at WMoon1, and on Instagram, WarrenMoon1. And I'm not a big social media guy, but I do have, I do put up stuff every now and then if I think I have something to say. But if anybody wants to reach out to me, those are the best ways to do it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I greatly thank you for your time, and I greatly thank everyone for tuning in to Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We're out.